3, 2, 1.
You know, we're trying our best to like not be
so
programmy.
No. I just wanted to do that on purpose to kind of get your reaction. Guys, this is episode 3.
Episode 3, guys.
Yeah, we don't want to do this as a programming thing, but I was kind of trolling you just there.
Because he was just all like, all right, 1, 2, 3. And I'm like, hi.
No, but for this one, we actually did do a little bit more diving into what we're going to say. We just don't want to go in without biblical knowledge as well. We want to provide something that's, steady. Mm-hmm. That's the rock.
Basically. But let's talk about our week. So we always like to start off every single episode with how has God been good to you this week, or what did you learn?
Yeah, and if this is your first time here, thank you for dropping by.
If
you're a continuous subscriber, thank you for following.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. I mean, last episode was a little crazy. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it was very emotional roller coaster for sure. So if you guys haven't checked it out, it was real. It was real, guys.
Yeah, seriously.
But, okay, so something I am grateful for this week. You know, we recently started a Bible study, and we've been learning a lot. But prior to that, I have just been on this, like, hunger and thirst to, like, know more about God and just go deeper into his word, right? Yeah. And it's been going so good. I just feel like I have learned so much. And I'm just so grateful for how that has been going and how I feel like my knowledge is increasing, obviously, but also just my connection and what God wants us to learn from him. I'm grateful for this season in our life, where we're learning the word, where we're getting to like also sit down, be honest, and having this podcast. Like, it's just been such an awesome time. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I'm grateful for.
Cool. To add on to that, actually, if anybody's interested, we use a Bible study tool. It's BibleStudyTool.com. Mm-hmm. So if you guys are interested, this is not a sponsored video, but if you guys are interested, that's what we use. I mean, you get definitions there. There is a subscription that you can pay for, and it dives in deeper with commentary and stuff like that. But the basis of the website is actually pretty good on its own without the subscription. Yeah. So check that out. I'll even put it at the description. Yeah. But for me, what I'm grateful for is I titled it Spiritual Freedom. And really what it is being able to talk about what we spoke about in episode 2. It was actually freeing. A lot of people didn't know, why we broke up, and I held that in. I kept that in to myself. A lot of people didn't know what I was going through behind closed doors. Yeah. I had a lot of moments where I had a lot of bad attitude and I was just angry all the time and stuff like that. And a lot of times, it's stuff like that really, without you knowing, it impacts you.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was really nice to be able to talk about it.
I mean, at one point you were like, is this something I want to talk about?
Yeah. I almost, there was a blank moment, and it was a face, like I had a blank expression in my face. It's like, am I really about to do this? I don't think I'm ready for this. Yeah. And I was literally about to just stop this whole thing recording and just walk out the room.
I mean, we all go through moments, and it's hard in general to talk about bad decisions in life. It's hard to not show the highlight reels, right, of like your life. But it's real. Yeah. And, you will hopefully be blessing someone else in sharing your story and being, and that's the whole point of this, right? Is to be able to share our experiences and to hopefully speak to other people and kind of relate, but also how to help you in a sense, like go to the next step. Yeah. And that's just what this whole thing is about, God using imperfect people.
Yeah. So before we continue, we have our mugshot of the day.
Mugshot of the day. Mine already has lipstick. It'll probably always have lipstick.
Yours is what, the Friends mug?
Mine is Friends, but on the other side, it says, we were on a break.
It's very themed to what we're talking about today, actually.
Actually, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it is themed.
Yeah. And mine says, all I care about is dogs and maybe 2 people. Yeah. So I want to say that's themed as well. Yeah. No, I'm kidding.
Wow. Yeah, so what are we talking about today?
So today we are going into toxic relationships.
Oof.
I almost said toxic friendships, but we kept going back and forth.
Yeah, because
it's toxic relationships, because this isn't only friendships. This is relationships, period.
I feel like that's something that we hear a lot about also on social media, right? About toxic friendships and this, and that, but we don't actually dive in deep into it until
talking about toxic. Social media is toxic.
I mean, that's a whole nother thing.
Anyway,
you know?
we don't dive deep into it.
We don't dive in too deep with like, okay, what exactly is toxic behavior, and like, what do we do about it, and what does the word say about this? So that's kind of like, you know, what we really want to talk about today.
And I actually have a Bible verse to add on to that before we get into all of this.
Yeah.
It is in, let me find it real quick. It is in Proverbs 13:20. Let me scroll down. I wish I would have had this already set here. Anyway, so it says, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm.
Mm-hmm. So what do you feel like when you first hear that? What does that tell you?
Honestly, you become a reflection of who you're with. Yeah. You know, we said it in the first podcast. No, was it the first one? No, I think it was the second one. But we said it in one of our podcasts, and it was, tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you your future.
That was the first one.
That was the first one. Okay. Yeah, you know, and that's another version of the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, walk with wise people, you'll become wise. Yeah. Walk with foolish people, and all you're going to do is just harm yourself.
It's funny because like we said, this month we're studying a lot about the book of Proverbs. And so when we said like, oh, let's talk about like toxic relationships, you know, it's just, I was saying it's funny how like God is like aligning everything together, because here we are, you know, studying a book that's telling us a lot about who you surround yourself with, and fools, right? People who decide to like, you know, not go the wise way. So for me, I feel like, I mean, you basically, you know, hit the nail on the head, right?
Oh, okay.
Is that the way you say it? Hit the hell on. Whatever, you know, you get it. All right, I don't have to explain myself, but he was pinpoint. All right, but yeah, it's true. It's like your circle will always really define who you are.
Have you had a toxic experience though? Like, let's say, you know, we've all had our friends, right? But have you had a moment where you could identify maybe a toxic friend or toxic groups that you've been in?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about it on our second episode, where, you know, after that part where we broke up, I was definitely surrounded by people who were not of good influence. They were just kind of, I received all the wrong advice, the wrong ways on how to handle certain situations. And it was an unfortunate moment, because it's like, sometimes you hold people so close to you and sometimes you see nothing wrong with them. But then when you really take a step back and you're like, are these people actually helping me? Are they helping me go forward? Are they helping me go closer to my relationship with God? For the most part, I would say most of my friends that were really close to me, even when I was younger and not so close with God, they knew that I went to church and that I was Christian and all of that. But despite of that knowledge, it's like they still would try to influence me the wrong way.
Yeah.
And so, you know, those were just some examples of like toxic people that I've had in my life, and I had to cut them off, unfortunately, because they weren't doing good to me, and they didn't have interest in having the same kind of lifestyle that I did. I mean, I think we all kind of go through moments where we ourselves can become toxic, or we have people that kind of bring us down. But have you had any kind of experiences of your own that you were like, yeah, this person I had to cut off, or, you know, whatever it is?
Yeah, I mean, I've had mine, but before I move on to that, I actually got a verse that came up to my head. It was actually a verse in Proverbs that we read during our study. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 16. For they cannot rest until they do evil. They are robbed of sleep till they make someone stumble. And the only reason why I bring that up is because you were saying how, you know, although they knew you were Christian, they still tried to bring you along. They still try to drag you, and they get fed off of that stuff. They love it. You get me? It's like, oh, you know, like, yeah, they were Christian, but they be doing that stuff like us. And a lot of times it's because they want to feel good about what they're doing.
Yeah, it's almost like an accomplishment. I mean, just in general, though, like as a as a Christian, I feel like we're probably tempted the most and tried the most, and also like magnified like through binoculars. Like, what are they doing? Like, So
Yeah.
it's definitely a tough walk, and it'll be even tougher if you're surrounded by people who aren't helping you out.
Yeah. I was always down to do certain stuff, but I wasn't always influenced. I wasn't always easily influenced to do, like, I wasn't a party guy. I wasn't really into drugs or anything like that. I mean, we started really young, so we kind of took ourselves out of that. We didn't give ourselves that opportunity.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I started thinking about it. I'm like, yo, I had a lot of moments where I was pretty toxic.
Yeah.
I had a lot of moments where, I would tell somebody, I would influence somebody to do something that would harm them, and I'd probably get a laugh out of it. Unfortunately, I'm not like that now. You get me? But it was just, it was funny to see.
You were that friend, huh? No, I'm kidding.
It's oh God. No, but it sucks though, because it's, I started thinking about myself, started thinking about what I used to do. I would be pretty toxic in the sense of I'd make fun of people a lot, and I was judgmental and
You're
whatnot.
the bully. No, I'm kidding.
I'd unfortunately get a kick out of it.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I'm not like that now.
Yeah.
Within my own friends, we kind of crack on each other, but it's not like that, like at the end of the day, I'm not out there to harm you.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like when you're really close with someone, I mean, that's just the thing. You roast each other.
Yeah.
Like I mean, especially with our family members, like we roast each other on a daily, but it all is stemming from like a place of love,
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think at some point we all have things in our lives or personality traits that are still developing, and sometimes can come across as toxic, or just have had moments where you didn't really necessarily have a good intention. And then that can kind of, make you come across as a toxic person.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a bunch of things that can.
One of the ways that you can actually identify, a toxic friend would be, how do you feel after hanging out with them? If you question yourself, if you feel good at the end of the day, if you feel, up there and whatnot, then maybe that is a good friend.
Yeah.
But what I mean by that is, there's been moments where it's like, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
Maybe that probably wasn't the best decision. And it's funny now that I think about it, because friendships like back in the day that I had versus like the ones that I have now, totally different experience, different outcome, different, like, I feel like now, especially with like our church friends, right? When we're hanging out and we're just having a good time, laughing, being dumb too. But it's like at the end of it, a lot of times we end up talking about like such deep, like spiritual topics. And then when we leave, we're like, wow, like, we start thinking more, but it's always like a positive outcome at the end of the day. You feel good. You feel like, wow, we really, we have this mature friend group that we can really be open about so many different topics, but we're learning off of each other.
Yeah.
Totally different than like, hey, I'm gonna go out for the weekend and I'm gonna go do this and that. And then now I'm empty and I'm broke. And, it's just all these bad decisions were made.
I actually agree with you. Even when even for me, when I leave I'm sorry, not the podcast. When I leave the Bible study, I feel good at the end of the night.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it so many times. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off, but like, I just, I can relate so much with that, because the amount of times that we finish Bible study, we're like, wow, that just felt so great and like so empowering. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't have to have a Bible study, right, to feel good at the end of the night. It's just, the point of this is to feel good with the group of friends that you're with. If all you're talking about is drugs and sexual relationships and, just straight up, trolling, street nonsense, if that's all you're talking about, and I'm talking for the Christians, I'm talking for non-Christians, because, ain't nobody a saint here, right? Mm-hmm. If that's all you're talking about, then think about it. You're not really edifying yourself. If anything, you're just moving back when you should be moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, it's just in general, it's like you were saying, Christian or non-Christian, it's like, let's take, in this specific scenario, let's take God out of the picture. It's like, do you really want to be surrounded by people who aren't thinking about self-progression in life? let's say, you want to start a business, or you want to, just finally go to school, but you're around people who think that education is stupid, or that, building your own business is impossible. All of those words, it's like, it's just going to bring you down. It's not going to do anything better for you. So it really just does become around, like, the people who you become around, it's like they will make you or break you.
Yeah. And when she means education, I know you don't mean education as in like, oh, going to college is stupid. No, education as in educating yourself.
But that's a whole nother thing too.
Because I was very anti-college, but whenever somebody asked me why was I anti-college, well, because I like business. Yeah. I like to get myself, and it's not about business majors. It's about, I like hustling. I like making my side money. I like starting a business. And there's a lot of dropouts who are millionaires today because they hustled in that aspect, but they educated themselves. They always said they read books, and they just,
exactly,
whatever field they were in, they educated themselves. So at the end of the day, if your group of friends don't care for any sense of education, whether it's through college or through books, or even nowadays through YouTube to edify yourself, then, come on. These are clowns.
And and I'm going to say, like, I know sometimes it can be a little bit tougher when maybe you were raised with someone and it's like this friend kind of became more than just a friend. It's like became family.
Tough, yeah.
It is tough, but sometimes you have to distance yourself just little by little, because you don't have to completely disown this person, but if you're on a road to success, it's just be wise about who you bring with you.
Yeah. Yeah, and it sucks because I know that there's a lot of people. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people, and I've given this advice to some people. It's like, oh, well, but these are my best friends. Like, I'm not going to just like drop them. Okay. I get that. But it's like, do these best friends care that you're being brought down along with them? No. Or do these best friends care that you're not doing anything with yourself?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then you got to do something.
Yeah. It's just, you don't have to completely disown them, but it's just, just learn to surround yourself. Let the good outweigh the bad.
Yeah.
Because I definitely have friends that I've known for so many years, and they're still around, but they're not my the people that I'm the closest and, tight with.
Yeah.
Like the ones that tight. I'm sorry, I totally remembered this Scary Movie 3 scene. That jacket is tight, son. All right, let me stop.
Go back.
I'm sorry. I am a person full of references, and a lot of times during conversations, I'm just thinking about like movies or like SpongeBob stuff in my head. But yeah. That's.
I hope you remember what you were saying, though.
I was talking about. Take it away, Penny.
Oh, my God. All right. Well, you know what? Next topic. The other thing that I want to talk about is having your guard up. And this isn't only for friendships. Yep. This is for, whether you're a boyfriend or girlfriend, or is your best friend, quote unquote, your best friend, or your friends, whatever it is, right? Do you have your guard up all the time for these people? How many times do you hear about people having to look through their phone?
Oh, yeah.
Look through someone else's phone.
We're talking about relationships, right?
Yeah, well, that's in that sense that we're talking about, my girlfriend or my boyfriend. Mm-hmm. If you ever feel the need to have to look through someone's phone, I can understand if there's a slip up. If there's some reason to believe and you want to confirm it, I can understand that. But
all the time?
But if you're doing it all the time,
yeah.
You're either the toxic person, or the relationship you're in is toxic, and you have to correct yourself. Because sometimes, there's times I've spoken to guys where it's like, oh, well, my girl has to always check my phone all the time.
Yeah, that's insane.
And I'm faithful to her.
Wow.
That's not right. And, and I mentioned whether you or the relationship is toxic, because sometimes we don't notice right away that we're the problem.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people I've spoken to, and this is in the relationship, like the boyfriend, girlfriend, or engagement relationship aspect, where it's like, bro, these are some red flags, man. Mm-hmm. Do you really want to stick around for something like this? Is this how you want to continue to live?
Yeah.
And ladies, same thing. If you feel like you have to constantly check, then maybe the guy is the problem. But if you're checking because you want to check, because you're being possessive, back up a little bit and check yourself.
And I mean, you have to check yourself, and you have to have an honest conversation with your boyfriend or girlfriend.
Yeah.
You know, because if you're feeling insecure about something and you're not communicating that, or what's making you uncomfortable, then it's just, there's all this unspoken communication that causes you to overthink. And sometimes it might not even be that big of a deal. But yeah, going back to where you said check yourself. I mean, for example, you were talking earlier how like you now realize that a lot of times was you being the toxic person. I applaud you for that, because that takes that takes some guts to admit, like,
well,
yeah.
I mean, I kind of figured it out.
Yeah.
When you, because the thing is, we had the right, so we have key points, but then we started thinking about it, and I had to think about it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, I didn't really have moments where it's like
I had a toxic friend, or
I had a toxic friend. Well, because the thing is, not to sound this way, but nobody could really sway me to do anything I didn't want to do.
yeah.
You get me? But
Stubborn,
I
like
did have my moments where, wait, but I kind of messed around a lot of time. Hold up, was I the toxic person?
Yeah, you know, we don't realize that because in our minds, we're always right.
Yeah.
You know, I think it takes a lot of kind of waking up and realizing like, oh, I'm the wrong person right now. I mean, I'll kind of even go back to moments where it's like where me and you have argued. You know, when you're in a heated argument and you just think like, yeah, I'm the right one. But if you were to really step away, sometimes it's like, oh no, I'm actually wrong.
Yeah.
You know, but it takes you to want to really get to the root of the problem.
Yeah.
So it's super important to examine yourself. Like, am I being toxic?
Yeah.
You know, am I, you know, maybe the friend who's not, you know, that others could trust.
And I'm actually thinking about it now, you know, because I'm already mentioning that I was the toxic one. I started thinking about it, and this sucks to admit too, but I can openly say I had to go to counseling. I personally went to counseling, like to kind of fix myself.
Yeah.
I had a lot of issues where I was being really machista, right?
Machista.
Is that the correct way to say it?
Yeah.
In our relationship, in our relationship, I had a lot of moments where I was just being assertive, but with attitude and absolute, and anything I said goes. I was being possessive. It was like, no, your time is my time.
Yeah.
You know, and I had to fix myself because all my emotions, I was relying it on only you, you know, for you to apply it. And that's another thing, you know, like, don't rely on a relationship to make you happy. The only one that can really do that for you is God. If you feel like you have a void and you need to fill it with a relationship, no, it's not a relationship that you need to fill it with, because that void is still going to be there. Mm-hmm. Because all you're going to do is cause pressure and a lot of like, you're going to cause a lot of disagreements and a lot of possession within a relationship, when really what you need is God.
The real problem. It's getting down to the root of it. I mean, just in general, like, there will always be this part of us, you know, it's like, this is your, let's just say, I keep touching this thing. Let's just say like this circle is your heart, right? Everything that makes you happy. You know, you can fill it up with relationships, with money, with, you know, vacation trips, possessions, like all of this. But there's always going to be this one side of you, like this one hole that nobody has access to but God.
Yeah.
And a lot of times is like, as that part becomes bigger and bigger and you're trying to fill it on with things that you think make you happy, like you said, it's like you bring on this pressure to someone else to fulfill that for you. And that's what causes you to have these toxic, you know, characteristics and behaviors towards another person.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, this all kind of just goes back to like, just really check yourself and, you know, examine yourself and be real.
Yeah.
You know, because it's easy to point fingers to so many other people.
Oh, it's your fault.
Know?
It's your fault.
I mean,
I'm like this because my family, or I'm like this because my dad or something.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, and I think, you know, if I look back into my life, and I think for, you know, I speak for most people, it's like we can all stem like, oh, I'm like this because when I was younger, you know, this and this happened to me, or this person betrayed me, or this person this. And I understand that things scar us.
Yeah.
You know, and especially, for example, let's talk about, you know, those relationships, you know, where a girl cheated on a guy and now this guy is filled with anger and now he's going to treat every single other girl and become this toxic person because he can't trust no woman. and all of that. And what is that person's reason is because, well, this person played me out, so now all girls, blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah.
yeah.
And so now we justify our actions and say like, well, I'm like this because this, and this happened to me. You know, we all have the opportunity to change.
Yeah.
You know, and especially if we're talking about a childhood like experience, I know it's not always easy. You know, and some things are deep. Like
Yeah.
some people have experienced, mistreatment from parents or the absence of a parent. But we can't go around living our lives, taking this one experience and blaming our actions for it. We
Yeah.
all have the
Oh,
opportunity.
well, I'm like this.
I'm like this because of this. It's like, okay, great. I mean, well, not great, but it's like, I understand this part. You obviously need some healing to do, but you can't live your entire life blaming this one experience when you have the option to change yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I had that very moment. My therapist identified that, yeah, maybe the relationship I had with my siblings, because listen, I know that they're going to be listening. I know that they're going to be hearing. I love all of them, but growing up, we did have a rough path. We did have a rough moment where we were just getting at each other. We were always just angry at each other, right? So that's all I lived and breathed for a long time, and attitude was just naturally flowing out of me. There was times where she would say, "Why are you giving me so much attitude?" And I'd say, "I'm not giving you attitude. This is just the way I speak."
Yeah.
No, attitude is wrong. Yeah, at the end of the day, the way you treat somebody, you can't just justify it with saying, "Well, this is the way I am. So like it or not, I'm not changing for you." No. At the end of the day, kindness is the way, love is the way, patience is the way.
Yeah, and it's not fair for the other person.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, coming from someone who did have, these different kind of upbringings or just issues that kind of internalized to him, I would say like, that's not fair and this and that. But I think the importance, I mean, one, I'm going to say I feel like this podcast has definitely been even just a therapy to you because you have opened up so much.
Yeah.
If anything, let's not call this 716. Let's call this Xavier's therapy. No, I'm kidding.
No.
No. I'm saying this in the sense of like, you've just opened up so much, and you have, I think the reason why you can open up is because you've allowed yourself to heal,
Mm-hmm.
And you've shed light on the issue, and now you're like, okay, this is the issue, and now what can I do to fix it?
Right.
And so at the end of the day, it's like, even as you're like, now that you've healed a lot, it's like, not only have you healed yourself, but it's like you've helped our relationship as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want a better friendship, if you want a better relationship, before pointing fingers on like the issues of like this isn't that.
Yeah.
Look at yourself first.
Recognize that you might be the problem.
Mm-hmm. Or recognize the areas where maybe you may have misspoke, or maybe that you may have overthought something and it wasn't. First, recognize that part, and it takes courage to do that and to admit it, because I for one was one where if we ever got into an argument and I was wrong, it's like I would just try to brush it away.
Right.
I was like, oh, okay. Like, dang, I messed up, but I didn't say anything. And it was something that I realized from childhood, that actually nobody in my house actually apologized to each other. We would just kind of throw it under the rug, and then it's like,
Went about your day.
It's like, so you hungry? That was like our sorry.
Right.
And I realized that I dragged this into our relationship, but after I was able to identify that, like, oh, like, I don't say I'm sorry and I need to fix this. This is a toxic behavior because this is something how we get to heal, from a disagreement or from an issue. So I, even though that was my reasoning, it's not my excuse anymore. Yeah. I have the option to change. Yeah. And hopefully I did.
No, you totally did. And it shows, because you were able to change. And because of who you are, I was able to also identify myself.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's when it comes down to relationships, especially within marriage, the communication is key, right? But if there's a problem, identify the problem. And don't be prideful about it.
Yeah.
You can't be prideful about it.
Yeah.
You know, oh no, that's just her being her, and her always wanted to change me. Because I used to think like that. You know, oh, my wife's always wanted to change me. You know, I used to think like that. But no, I mean, if you really can't figure it out, I dare you to take one day in therapy session and see what they say.
Yeah.
You know, you might identify something that you didn't even know was there.
Yeah.
It happened to me. You know, but moving on to the next portion of this, you know, another trait, and you know, this can apply to friendships and relationships as well, is, are they concerned for you?
Oh yeah, that's a big
And that's
one.
a big one. Yep.
Yeah, that's a huge one because, you know, your real friends, and especially more so in a relationship, but let's talk a little bit more about friendships here. The friends who really love you will care for you and will make sure you're not headed towards like this path of destruction.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy to find a group of people to party with, to live all your good moments with. But what about the people who are down to tell you when you're wrong?
Yeah.
Or down to tell you when it's all like, hey, that's not right. Like, you really shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. And a lot of times we'll come across friends, you know, and I've caught myself doing it when I was younger. It's like, hey, you do you. I'm not going to judge you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that might be a good way to put it, because you don't want to come off as a judgmental type. But know this: if that person's down the road towards destruction, by you saying, I'm not going to judge you, you just do you, not only are you enabling what they're doing wrong, but you're not like helping them.
Yeah, you're not helping them at all.
You're showing no care.
Yeah. And you know what's also sad? Imagine having a friend where you know that they're headed towards the wrong path, and you could have said something, but you're like, no, I don't want to touch that topic because that's a little sensitive, or that's a little this.
Too controversial.
Whatever.
Sometimes we're afraid to do it.
We're afraid because, you know, it's too confrontational. Is that the word?
Yeah. Confrontation. Well, yeah. You don't want to start a problem.
That confrontation, you know. But I heard something where it's saying a lot of times when we just stick into this thing of like not being, you know, not confronting someone or not trying to say something, is because we're so worried about what they're going to think of us. So it becomes a very selfish act of like, oh, I don't want to look like I'm not cool, or I don't want to look like I'm all up in their business. But then imagine later down the road, like years later, you see them like just on the worst case of their life. And you think like, dang, I had the opportunity to say something
to help that person,
and I didn't say something.
Yeah.
You know, it's a really sad reality to live, you know, and it's almost like a guilt you end up going with. But in general, I think the person who loves will also be there to correct.
Yeah. There's also these situations where, you know, maybe you might not have a drinking problem, but maybe the person, you don't know the situation of the person, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of moments, you know, because I know that there's Christians out there that drink because they don't find nothing wrong with it, right? I know that they don't have a boundary to it because they say, oh, you know, it's all right. Drinking is okay. But listen, it's not okay. If you're leading somebody towards a path of destruction and you're not doing anything about it, especially if that person has like an addiction, you know, or if your sin is causing them to sin, you're just as sinful. Nothing here works for you. Yeah. Nothing here is going to work out for either of you.
I mean, there is a Bible verse. I can't remember it right off the top, but it says something along the lines of like, be careful that you make my people fall.
Yeah.
Because of you.
Yeah.
You know?
Because of your actions. And it's true.
Yeah. And it talks about something like, if this is you, it's like you might as well like tie yourself to an anchor and go down the sea. You know,
oh, wow.
It's something along the lines of that, of like the gravity of what it is.
Wow, that's actually interesting.
Yeah, because it's true. It's like, you know, here we are supposed to be an example, you know, and we're bringing other people down from us. But what you were going off of, like, you know, the ones who really care for us, it's true. The ones that care for you, the ones, your real friends should be the ones that tell you the hard, cold truth. But a lot of times as the person who is going through something, sometimes we know who's willing to tell us the truth and who isn't. So, for example, when we broke up, I definitely had like a snap moment of my life where I'm like, that's it, I'm done. I'm going to go live my life, you know, as we would say growing up, vivir en el mundo. Like, I'm going to go out there, explore my options and all of this. And I know at this point, like, I know my family and like my close friends were like, would be real enough to tell me like, hey, this isn't right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But me knowing that and me getting upset because that's not the advice that I wanted to hear, I really isolated myself from my family, from friendships, and obviously from you because we weren't together. But Xavier was really one that always kept me grounded when it came to, you know, making smart decisions, making godly decisions. And, you know, I decided to hang around with people that I knew always wanted me to party with them or just go out because I know they would encourage this.
Yeah.
You know?
So that's why you lean more towards them.
I lean more towards them because I know if I come closer to home or closer to what I should be doing, because I know the answer. I knew the answer wasn't to do all these actions. But at the end of the day, I'm here like, that's not what I want to hear. I just want to be wild and free and young and all of this.
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously those people at that time felt like my friends because they're like, oh, yeah, they're with me. They're down to do whatever. But just because someone is down to do whatever with you, that doesn't make them a real friend.
And that's actually the next thing, you know, I wanted to talk about. The next topic there is how we act around toxic friends. Because a lot of times what the result is we don't want to be around good people, especially when we're on the path to destruction.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes when we break up with somebody, it makes us destructive subconsciously.
Yeah.
In a way, because you're like, you know what? I'm tired
of this.
I need to get over this relationship, so I'm gonna do whatever I want, right? But then you'll have family members like, hey, like, yo, you really shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And instead of accepting their advice, instead of realizing that they're trying to help you, the first thing you say is, oh well, you know what?
You
like,
don't
I don't care.
me.
Like, you don't understand what I'm going through. And then next thing you know, you're not hanging around your family. You don't want anything to do with the friends that are trying to help you. You don't want anything to do with the family that's trying to help you. A lot of times, unfortunately, parents get pushed aside for this because they're the first ones to care, right?
If there's anything I've realized the older and older I got is that, man, your parents, for women, your mom, man, they are down for you.
Yeah.
And they will tell you how it is. And when you're growing up, you think like, oh, my parents, like, they suck, they this, they that, you know, they don't want to. And then you get older and then you're like, yo, my mom really loved me, man.
Yeah.
She may have not have had the best approach to things, but that she loved me and she wanted the best for me. Like, you really end up realizing that your mom is your best friend.
Yeah. Yeah, and it sucks, man. Like, and especially if as we get older and stuff, you know, and I'm only saying this because if you're in a situation where you feel like, I don't want to be around anybody that's holy or anybody that's too good or, you know, because I want to live my best life, right? But just be careful because a lot of times our loved ones are the ones that have cared for us. And let's say there's a moment where that loved one is no longer there, you're going to hurt.
Yeah.
Because you're going to realize that all that person ever wanted to do for me was to care for me. This is all a result of being around toxic people because they lead us down the wrong path.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times it's like they could care less what your parents think of you or whatever. They just want you around for the good company. They don't want to be alone. I mean, there's that saying where it's like misery loves company.
Yeah.
You know, if someone's down in the dirts and they see someone who's doing so well, has so much potential in life, you know, and they could drag them with them, why not? Now they're feeling like crap, but at least they're not alone.
Yeah.
Right? And so I have definitely come to this point where I realize, like, yo, I love my mom. She is real. She is this. And everything that she said, it's like, wow, she was so true. You know, and I think that if anything now, I get saddened at the thought of like, wow, I really, you know, would talk to my mom this way or really not appreciate her words this way. And now I feel like it's more of like that making up of time with her, you know, making sure that I get the best moments and I get to maybe not bury the past, you know, relationship part, but it's just make it better from here.
Right.
You know?
Right. If you can think about it, you know, you think to yourself, right? what have I done to the people that have tried to help me? What have I done? Have I listened to them? You know, am I still friends with them, or am I keeping connections with them, or have I pushed them aside? If this is you, then maybe you should check yourself. Maybe hit that person up, because that person that was trying to advise you before, they only cared about you.
Yeah.
You know, they were only trying to help you from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that, you know, if they cared about you before, they still care about you now, and they'll understand that you were just going through a moment.
Yeah. For example, me and my brother, we're pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, I mean, anybody who knows us and sees us acting together is like, oh, you guys are like twins, you know? And it's like, because we're always joking, and me and him are like this. I mean, I don't want to talk too much about his story, but it's, you know, there's been moments where, you know, he's pushed me away because, you know, he was on a different path, and it happens.
Yeah.
It just happens because we know we're doing wrong, and we don't want to disappoint those close to us.
And it actually goes back to the times in Genesis when, you know, Adam and Eve did the first sin. The first thing that they did when they sinned was they ran and hid. They ran and hid.
Yeah.
Right? And when God was walking towards them and looking for them, they were hiding. Why? Because they were in sin. And we tend to do that around the people that love us the most.
Yeah,
we hide from them because we're afraid to look. We're afraid about what we look like to the people that care about us most. So we get away from these type of people.
I mean, from the beginning, we know what's right and what's wrong, you know? And, you know, the person that loves you will still love you. You might have hurt this person, maybe pushing, but they do still love you. You know, I think about it like with my brother. When I went through my experience, when he went through his experience, you know, we went months really not talking as much. We're tight as ever again, you know, because that's just the kind of love. That's just what real love is.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a beautiful thing to have people who really care about you being there for you, supporting you. There's actually a verse. I'm trying to like mess around with this. I'm not used to it. Yeah, I'm not used to it. But there's a verse that's found in Proverbs 27:6 that says, "Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses." So, you know, what I understand from this is like, you know, a friend may hurt you, but, you know, real friendship, like there's ways of repairing that. But it says an enemy multiplies kisses, you know, and it's like they can hurt you so much more, and in a way that's like deceitful. Like you don't really notice.
They cover it up with flattery and whatnot.
Yeah, because when someone who isn't good for you or someone who means bad for you, they're not going to be straight up and be like, I want to lead your life to destruction. No, it's going to start off little by like, hey, let's do this, let's do that. I mean, I was talking about like episode 2 where, you know, this person was all like, hey, so you want to go smoke weed with us? In my lowest moment, you know, and I was so vulnerable. Thankfully, I didn't, you know, and to this day, I've never smoked anything, but I'm here like I think back on it and I'm just like, wow, like what would have happened? Like where could my life ended up, or experiences? You know, God does show grace that we can come back, but, you know, I don't, you know, for me personally, I'm like, it would be so much better if I didn't have to take the hard road in life, you know, because even in the hard road, God, again, can save us. But it's just such a longer path, a longer healing, a longer this. You know, if you can get it right the first time, like, I know that's like expecting someone to be perfect, but learn from other people's mistakes, not your own mistakes. You know? Well,
I mean, you're going to learn from your mistakes.
You're going to learn from your mistakes, but try to avoid those mistakes and learn from others before you repeat them and do them yourself.
Yeah. Because you can fall into a bad habit anyway. You're going to end up falling into the habit of falling into the mistakes more than one time when it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
And I guess the only other thing is how do we go about, you know, fixing this in our life? How do we go about removing these kind of people in our lives? And if the hangout is a bad situation, why don't you instead just be like, hey, you know, how about we hang out? I can't today, but how about we hang out at church so-and-so day?
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of times they're going to say no.
Yeah.
But if they say yes, great, you know, but a lot of times they're going to say no. But by you initiating this invitation to church, that's a good way to kind of filter out in a sense, but they do it on their own.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
and
true.
at the same time, it's like, do you really want to hang out with people that aren't edifying you spiritually?
Yeah. You know, I know it's definitely happened to me where I've been like, hey, listen, I can't, but hey, I'm gonna go to church this day. Like, are you down to come? Like, whatever. And I'm pretty enthusiastic about it. And then they're like, oh yeah, I'll see. And you know, we always know what I see means.
Yeah.
You want to become more Christ-like, and you want to really, you know, surround yourself with people who have the same mindset. Like, sometimes this is the best way to do it.
Yeah. And unfortunately, you know, and this is, and I mean this wholeheartedly, if you're a new Christian or if you feel weak in your walk, you know,
Even more.
I'm sorry?
Even more so, like more of a reason to really filter
Yeah.
out.
Because unfortunately, your light, you know, and I'm speaking in biblical analogy, your light is going to be darkened.
Yeah.
Your light's going to be corrupted.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a lot easier for you to fall than it is for them to come to church.
I mean, listen, I can definitely say from high school till now, I have lost friendships, but you know, could be, I mean, there's could be a couple of reasons. I mean, I just feel like in general, people become busy and, you know, people just start to fade away, but also like, you know, it just comes naturally. Like when you start growing closer with God, you know, people will just naturally be like, oh, what's this person? They seem so religious and so like this. But I'm happier now.
Yeah.
You know, I want to say for the most part, I don't really have like a toxic, like a super, you know, toxic person or anything that I have noticed in my life. And it's just, it makes you live freer, happier. I don't have my guard up. So now I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about living in a world where I'm scared to be myself or I'm scared of being judged. Like even within like my social media, like I know a lot of people know me for makeup, but I'm not afraid of posting like that I worship God, that
Yeah.
I go to church, you know? And it's so freeing. It's so
That's
freeing
awesome.
to be yourself, to not have to make this fake personality that, you know, my church friends, I'm this way with them, and then with this group of friends, I'm a little different. Like, no, I'm Adrian all the way around.
Yeah.
Like I think for the most part,
You're not putting on a front.
I'm not putting on a front. Anybody who knows me, like this is me.
Yeah.
You know?
100%.
Yeah. And going back to, you know, how to kind of deal with these toxic friendships. I mean, that's one way, right? You start kind of backing away, you let them filter out themselves. Depending on your situation, sometimes being real with them is a thing too.
Yeah.
You know, you can be like, hey, listen, I'm starting to change my life and I really don't like doing this anymore, or I don't like, you know, I don't like where this is going, or I'm not down to hang around at these places. Hopefully this will lead to something positive where they'll want to join you. But if they don't, you know, I promise you, God will give you friends.
Yeah.
God will lead the right people in your life. This is not the only person for you. And this goes both for a toxic friendship and a relationship. You know, sometimes we hold on to people because we're so scared of losing them, thinking that they're the only ones that understand us. They're the only ones that are for us. But you think the creator of this world didn't think about you when he made you? He's like, you know, I have your other person. I have your significant other. I have your friends for you. But you have to trust me and you have to let go a little bit. But it's the letting go part that's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're realistic here. We know that this is easier said than done.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
But when you do it, you're not going to regret it. But even if you're a believer or a non-believer, even if you're a churchgoer or a non-churchgoer, let me tell you, the Bible has a lot of answers to a lot of situations.
Yeah.
And I recommend the book of Proverbs. You know, I would love to list a whole bunch of I would love to actually speak about the whole many verses that are in the book of Proverbs that actually help in this very topic. But because of the length of this because of the length that this would take, you know, like how long that would take, I'm going to link every one of them in the description below. So that way you can take a look at it, you know, and it'll help you.
I mean, we've been really diving into the book of Proverbs, and, you know, there's just so many verses that talk about, like, you know, people who turn away from the Bible and are turning away from wisdom, and how much he calls them fools, and like, you know, not to mix yourself with fools. And like, I'm just all like, wow, it's like some things are just clear as day.
Yep.
You don't have to be so into reading or so into like, literature to really understand what they're trying to tell you.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. You
Yeah.
know, I used to definitely have like this thing, this is younger me where I would be like, yeah, the Bible just talks about Jesus and this, but I need answers. And I'm like, obviously now that I'm older, I'm like, the Bible has the answers.
Yeah.
Like I'm telling you, it really
And
does.
Proverbs is really good to give. It's like almost like a life instructions of what we should and shouldn't do.
Yeah.
But I know that it can be difficult, and you're probably thinking to yourself like, man, but how am I really going to do this? Like, can I really do this? Or I don't know if I really want to do this. But listen, if it's hurting you, maybe not maybe, you should. You should. If it's hurting you, you should. So like we said before, consider inviting them to church, or consider inviting them to something that's more aligned with your faith.
Yeah.
Consider reading them a verse. Consider something. And slowly you'll realize that you'll either start blessing them with something, or they'll start backing away from you.
Yeah. A lot of times God will give us the tools necessary to get out of something.
Yeah.
But I think, if after this whole time of us talking, there's been someone that you've kind of had in mind, that just might be the person, that might be causing you damage. Because we know. A lot of times we know, and we just want to hold on to a certain
and
someone.
it's that comfort. We want to hold on to that, but
it's a comfort. And like, you've had all these great memories and great, like, just times with this person. But I mean, I remember we talked about this before, where it's like sometimes people are just in your life for a season.
Yeah.
And seasons only last for a little bit.
Yeah.
What is it though? A season or a lifetime? There was like a quote that you said a couple of times. I don't know if you can remember it.
I do not remember. I'm
so
here.
Sorry.
I'm here.
Just
Like,
putting you
what?
on the spot, like,
Like,
girl, what you doing? He's giving me that signal, like, come out. And I'm kidding.
I'm like, what are you talking about?
No, but there's a quote that basically says, like, friends are there for a lesson, a season, or a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this person was supposed to be in your life for you to realize, or for you to hopefully take that part as an example and grow from it. Or maybe they're there to also change with you, or to help you get over a certain part. But not all friendships are there for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
They're just not.
It's just, that's not how it works.
No. And it's just, we have this thing of like wanting to hold on to people. I know I'm definitely one that's like, to say that I can cut someone off, that's hard for me, but it's necessary.
And if they weren't meant to be in your life, they find a way back.
Yeah, that's true. It's definitely happened with us.
God finds a way, especially if you're meant to edify that person, and you by mistake through your emotions, or whatever, you ended up cutting them off and it was prematurely. God will find a way. And if you're the only way to get them to go to church, then that'll work out again.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it is coming to an end now. We do appreciate you for sticking, for this long. I really hope that this edified you in the best way possible.
Yeah.
If there's anything that you guys want to add on, maybe if there's an advice that we didn't give and you want to put it in the comments, go for it. You know.
For sure.
But other than that,
guys, thank you so much for the support. Seriously. Thank you for listening in. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be vulnerable. That's not always easy, but we've come to realize that we can bless other people by being vulnerable and by shedding light on some of our mistakes, some of our life experiences. I think sometimes God allows us to go through things, and where the devil might try to take you down with it, God's all like, no, like, this is going to be your testimony now.
Yeah, 100%.
So I'm just, again, I know I keep saying this, but I really am excited to do this. I'm so happy we're doing this together.
Yeah.
It's been cool, and I think we're getting a little bit more and more comfortable, because in the beginning I'm like, oh my gosh, like we're doing this. Now it's like, oh, so we're gonna chat today? Cool.
Yeah. We're just sitting down and going.
Yeah.
But all right, guys, I'll see you on episode 4. Again, thank you. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe now.
Yeah.
Do it.
Bye.
Bye.